everybody, it is Calxiyn here. If you guys enjoy this video, you guys should subscribe, become patrons over on Patreon to watch our RWBY reactions a week early and come discuss RWBY with us. Follow us over on social media. Ring that notification bell. You had a very strange look on your face just now. You're trying to hold back a yawn while I do my intro? Okay, so today we're going to talk about Pietro and Jacques, okay? We're trying to upload these in like least amount of spoilers to most amount of spoilers, just because I think by the title, like this won't be a spoiler. Like, we're just basically comparing Pietro and Watts and Jacques. And basically, I was going to do a video about like Watts as a character, like a villain analysis, like a very highly produced type video where we sort of compare them and make some guesses for Watts's character arc and what would be good and stuff like that. So we're kind of just gonna do that today, okay? And I did the skin color test, okay? So the eye drop thing again.
You went on Photoshop.
Yeah, so the eye drop thing again. So I did this
coming from someone who is like 18 shades lighter than the rest of her whole family.
I know. But okay, so I did it the first time with Watts and the Volume 3 screenshots of Penny's father. Okay, and so you guys, I'll put it on the screen maybe if I remember to edit this video. Maybe I won't. But yeah, and so I did it then, and they looked almost similar. Like, almost. If they could only be in the same lighting, they would be similar. But, like, this man is, like 3 shades darker. Like 3 or 4 makeup shades darker than Watts now.
They can't share a foundation. It's really annoying.
They cannot, no. And so, yeah, I like press D to doubt. I doubt that they're related at this point, like actually brothers. But that doesn't mean that they didn't have some sort of friendship. So that's all I'm saying. I think at this point, the Watts being related to Jacques' theory is actually stronger than the Pietro one, because Pietro is like much older than Watts seems. Like Watts seems like 40s. Pietro seems like 50s,
late
60s. You know what I'm saying? So there's that. Like that's the first part. But so they're probably not brothers, okay? And they just look too different now. And the mustaches don't necessarily line up. The eyebrow spikes at the end do a little bit, but Jacques and Watts look way more similar than Pietro and Watts.
I'm curious
now.
if we did the skin color test for every single character
in RWBY, like that we know is actually related, would it line up? I mean, I think the Schnee-wise, they all are the same skin tone.
The same porcelain blinding white.
Exactly.
But specifically for Pietro, because like imagine if it was the non-binary sailor from season 4. It's like,
my God,
that's Pietro's.
I know, like it's just
brother's child.
It's just like his niece or his nephew or whatever. And so it's sort of like, yeah, they're not related. But anyway, I think there's more points to Jacques being related to Watts at this point. But I feel like Pietro and Watts probably worked together, probably knew each other, could have had a brothers but not by blood sort of relationship, even like a father-son type situation, depending on Watts's, you know, his self and all of that.
Wow, so like Watts potentially
mentored, like Pietro mentored.
You're not
Watts.
Saying it's his actual
No,
child.
I'm saying like, you know, if they were both in the field, like a young Watts that's like starry-eyed and wants to work for the Atlas military because he has all these smarts, and Pietro's like, I'll take you under my wings, son. Sort of like Treasure Planet.
I'll take
like, you know,
under
the old
my
guy from
Jordan wearing,
you know,
robot wheelchair.
Guy from Treasure Planet, like the big
crab guy.
Yeah, and then you have like Jim Hawkins. Like that's how I feel about like both of that. That's what could have happened, except obviously Watts turned evil, so that's a little awkward.
And RWBY got more, you know, iterations, unlike Treasure Planet.
Rip. Okay, so here's sort of the difference that we were sort of talking about when we made the video, if this makes sense. Like, when we were going to make the Watts comparison, it was sort of like, Pietro, like, he seems to, you know, he goes down a mantle, he has some fun, you know what I mean? He makes shoes that, like, can help you dance.
Fun,
like, you know, he
helping
has
people
some
with
fun.
their prosthetics.
Exactly, and so it's sort
going
of...
to the club.
The Mantle Club. Everybody's, like, an alcoholic down in Mantle. Anyway.
Like a speakeasy? It already looks like the 1930s.
Anyway, so I think that here's the thing. Like, he has fun down below, but when he goes up to Atlas, like, military tech, like, they mean business. And we sort of you talked about this more so, is that, like, the military takes something, and we kind of talked about this, because wood carving is artistic. And this is basically, like, the wood carving, but for technology, in a sense. Because he's supposed to be based off of Geppetto. So instead of the wood carving, it's, like, making the prosthetics and the robots and stuff. And so it's, like, how military sort of, you know...
You take something you love,
Yeah.
and you have passion as an art, and then it's being perverted by people who want to make killing machines out of it.
Yeah, exactly. And so
how
we
that
sort of
can
have
be-
that thing with them, and maybe Watts just didn't want to participate in that, and so he left. But I also think...
I love how the guy who didn't want to, like, give genocidal machines of war...
That, but I mean, like, what if Watts' whole thing is, like, when I was in the military, they wouldn't let me do what I want, even though that I had the best way, that I had the smartest way, that I had the best way to do... Like, they didn't listen to me, so now I'm gonna go help Salem, because you know what? Salem lets me do whatever I want. So Pietro is sort of stuck where he does obey the Atlas military, and he does do what they say. You know, he puts his own sort of touches, like, he probably made Penny's design and stuff like that. But he keeps his fun wrapped up in a box and mantle, whereas Watts was like, no, okay, I have the best way, I have the smartest way to do something, I have the most, like, you know, I don't want to say the easiest way, but, like, we won't get hacked this way, the code is, like, simple, all of that stuff, like, you guys obviously can tell that I do not know, like, what I'm talking about when it comes to technology.
You're really
right?
flaunting your master's degree in computer science.
But yeah,
here,
and
pal.
so it's one of those things where I'm just like, I bet that maybe it has something to do with that. Like, they wouldn't listen to him. They wouldn't do it his way. And even though Watts maybe had a better way, because obviously he's so sort of intelligent, he can even hack Atlas's computers and stuff like that. And so I just want to show you guys, like, a couple screenshots. And so the first thing, right, Pietro says that he's either a genius or one of our own. Right? And I fear he may be both. So it's almost like Pietro's onto it a little bit. Like, I wonder if he knows that it's Watts, because realistically,
he seems to have a suspicion.
how many people are like Watts in the world? Like, there's probably not a lot, especially if genius and, like, part of the military, like, they're probably narrowing it down at this point, right? And so I feel like Watts just falls into that category where he must know. And so I wonder, like, what sort of relationship did they have? Like, I bet that they had something, and at one point, Pietro was chosen over Watts. And Watts felt like that wasn't fair. And, like, we also have sort of, you see that he's working, like, on his computer and all that stuff in the OP.
With a dastardly mustache.
Little Watts smile, and he's trying to hack the election, okay? He's taking a look at, like, the Atlas operatives. He's hacking into the Mantle security network. He has a bunch of folders, and one of them has the Atlas symbol on it.
Like, I understand that, like, actual hacking thing is very complex and no one knows what it looks like, but the idea that he's just opening up, like, hackalexing.exe is hilarious to me.
I think that it's great, though. I mean,
sorry, I just gotta
works.
open up ruindemocracy.exe. It's a DOS program.
Here's what I think, okay? Watts is now free because of Salem. You know what I mean? He can do what he wants, he can make what he wants.
There are no strings on me.
Exactly. And that's what we were talking about in the video, is that Penny has literal strings because she's a robot, but Pietro has metaphorical strings because he is held by the military. Now, in terms of this relating to Jacques and Watts being disgraced, we know that Jacques is somewhat controlling Ironwood. Like, you guys will see when we do an Ironwood video, there's this sort of screenshot that we have where Ironwood is on the screen, but it flickers to Jacques.
Yes.
My whole
It's
idea
very subtle.
is, again, if Jacques and Watts are related somehow, and even if they're not, that Jacques was the one who purposely disgraced Watts and got him kicked out and all of that stuff, right? Because I would really like it if Watts did not do anything wrong. I would really like it if he was a wronged man who is now more evil because when he was broken and when he was wronged, somebody took him under his wing. Because Miles and Carrie do say this in the RWBY lore book. They say that Watts is like Watson if he was with Moriarty instead of Sherlock, right? And so there's
that
sort
was an
of
interesting line.
I think it's an interesting line because you sort of maybe have this like thing that Pietro could have been Sherlock, even though he's Geppetto, like in terms of the dynamic, having like, you know, that sort of relationship, it could have been Pietro.
You could have
and
helped
Watts.
Someone who wanted to, you know,
exactly,
help the
and then
world.
somehow he got on the Moriarty side. The other possibility is that Watts and Jacques are working together, because a couple people do think, like, I think people are getting a bit too carried away. I don't think Jacques is working with Salem. A lot of people have said that. I don't think he knows that much. But,
well, I mean,
think about it this way,
he
okay?
knows about Oz, so he probably knows...
What, Jacques?
Oh, sorry, I'm thinking of Ironwood. Yeah, no, continue.
Yeah,
Please,
so here's the thing, sis. Okay, my personal opinion on that is that Jacques could be working with Watts, but not necessarily know Salem. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And so maybe instead of Jacques betraying him, like, what if Jacques caused him to get kicked out on purpose? So he'd be so tilted against the military that he would work for Jacques instead. Does that make sense, or something like that? Like, I feel like Watts is pretty manipulative, but I also feel like that Jacques could definitely be the Moriarty that is sort of being referenced and talked about, and maybe that's where Watts learned his manipulation and all of that stuff. But when it comes to the Jacques thing specifically, I think it's like Jacques has a vested interest in making sure that Grimm exists, right? Dust is used to power everything in the world, right?
But
It's
also
not
weaponry.
it's not just like weapons. However, what is the biggest market for dust? Right? Like, other than household stuff, you lose an entire portion of your market because you don't need weapons anymore.
But
and
also,
I'm sure that it's like
population would expand.
Yeah, and then maybe like more household dust would be, it's all very
corporations
complicated.
very rarely look for the long game.
Exactly. And so I feel like to Jacques, he would be like, in his head, he would be like, if they get rid of the Grimm, how am I gonna sell my dust? Right? Because Jacques is manipulative, but I don't think he's very bright in terms of what Hunter is saying, which is the long-term sort of advantage, right? And so he has a vested interest in making sure, like, because Salem isn't the only one making the Grimm, right? Like, the Grimm sort of exist, but Salem could create an economy where there are more Grimm, which means people need to buy more dust, which means people need more dust, right? And so he could have a vested interest in making sure, like, because I don't know if RWBY's gonna end like, oh, Salem's defeated, we called the brothers back, the Grimm are gone, we get to live in a peaceful, nice world. Like, I feel like the Grimm will sort of...
Ivory.
I feel like the Grimm will always sort of exist, but at the same time, Jacques doesn't know that, so what if Watts is like, there's all of these, like, plans to get rid of the Grimm for good? Like, you don't know how that'll affect your business, do you, Jacques?
Weiss
You know what I'm
sat
saying?
her father down and explained Salem's whole, like, everything she learned from Ozpin and Jin. 1, do you think Jacques would even care to listen? And 2, what do you think he would do with that information?
If Jacques was, like, forced to listen,
yes.
I feel like he would make people paranoid so they buy more dust.
I feel
like Armageddon is coming.
I feel like he wouldn't
Stock up
believe
on your
it.
dust. No, but I'm saying, like, theoretically, if he did believe it and he had to do something about it, that's what I feel like he would do. So those are our thoughts on Watts and Pietro. We just froze a little bit. Okay, we're trying to render a video and record at the same time.
Watts is in!
Watts is in! Yeah, Watts is coming for us, but yeah, I'm really interested to see what they do with Watts, but I can guarantee you guys that him and Pietro knew each other. Pietro was maybe his mentor, something like that, but he got kicked out of the military. And the question is why, sis? Why is he a disgraced Elysian scientist? And I'm sure Pietro could tell us, right? But I am super interested in knowing, and I think, again, it would be really interesting if it wasn't Watts' fault, if Watts was, like, framed and set up and all of that stuff, and so he went over, took a taste of the bad side, And so those are my thoughts. Those are my thoughts on him. But I definitely think Pietro
The way you said that makes me assume you would easily take a taste of the bad side.
Does that make sense? Like, Pietro would feel bad because Pietro would sort of be like, like, you could have been so much more, Watts. You could have done things for good. And he's just like, well, you guys didn't let me, I could see a very interesting conversation going on there with them.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's
like, Ironwood was bad, but you went with, like, a genocidal demon woman?
Oh boy. But yeah, so that's basically it. I don't think we have anything else to say about these two at the current moment, but I do think that outlining their relationship and how they could have their own sort of moment is a really, like,
do you think
good idea.
This is just to throw a penny in the gay well. Do you think that they might have been, like, had some kind of relationship in the past?
But he's so old.
I guess
He's
that's
so much
true.
older.
Yeah. I don't know.
Like,
I get the idea. I get the idea with Pietro that he let himself go, but with
maybe we could also have an uncle-nephew
Watts.
situation, and that's why Watts and them don't look exactly alike, but could have been looking sort of alike, right? I do want someone to be related to someone here. Like, either Watts has to be related to Pietro, or he has to be related to Jacques. There is no in-between. But again, we have that theory that Jacques disgraced Watts on purpose, because Watts was having, like, some sort of affair or some sort of thing with Willow, and I do really like that idea, because then that means that Watts technologically did not do anything wrong, but because Jacques Jacques has a place on the council, Jacques just ruined his life. Like,
And-
Jacques ruined his life and, like, manipulated Ironwood to get rid of him, and now that's
Which
why
is something
he's
we
very
might
salty.
discuss more in a different video.
Yeah, but I think that we did a good job explaining some relationship stuff here. So we will see you later, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed. Bye. Thank you to all the patrons over on Patreon who support our channel. Their names will be showcased now.